Good morning, it's your friendly neighborhood Tironan, and today we're going to be looking at the PT-76s, your Tier 1 uh, starter vehicle on the Russian line, which they name after a corporation, and that's fine. I think they're just trying to take the nationalities out of it altogether, and I kind of like that idea. This is supposed to be a game, not my country's better than your country. And so you'll understand, perhaps, that I can support that in a gaming environment and people can get away from some of the nationalistic crap I see. Okay, so we're going to move on along. It's supposed to be a fast tank. It's also supposed to be an amphibious tank. Whether that has any role in the game, I've yet to determine. Um, I'm out behind the heavy tanks, which is kind of strange. They didn't get a shot there before they got it off. Okay, and the fellow's going to rub treads with me. Probably not a good idea, and I can't drive worth a darn. Okay. Well, we certainly know where the enemy's at. Not going to have any trouble there. And they're hiding behind berms like good tanks should. And we're going to try to use this rock for some protection. And this is not a good position because I can't get my gun on him. So I come up this hill. Alright, got him. And I've taken some damage, which is not unexpected, but oh, by God, I wanted some kills for a change. And I wasn't getting them. Where was that? Now this rock has saved my butt twice, but I'm not all that grateful because it doesn't let me shoot. Okay. Let's find out how fast the reload on this is. Oh, that's useful. We're actually having a good game for once instead of the other way around. Ooh. First time I ever rammed somebody, that didn't turn out too terribly well. You got to be in the heavier vehicle and up to some speed to get that done. And that was my mistake. But that's okay. It was just about the end of the game, and they didn't have but one or two tanks left anyway. So we actually got some kills in that time, and certainly better than I'd seen before. Okay, 3 tanks destroyed. Did a little damage. Not a spectacular outing, but that's okay. All right, let's go back here, and we're going to go to the M48. The M48 has a history. It was its development all the way back to the T-20 series of tanks that arose because uh, the United States had an armored development team organization that thought that the M4 Sherman wasn't all that it was cracked up to be by Army ground forces, and felt pretty sure we need a replacement vehicle. Excuse me. And it had a tortured development. There were a lot of ideas being tried. There was no hurry being exerted by Army ground forces of the U.S. Army because they thought that the Sherman was getting the job done, and until Normandy, it really was. And you'll hear about how the glorious Panther and the Tiger and what have you, but they even had answers to that. Some of them were a little bloodier than others, but in general, I had read a book where one of the guys that actually took care of recovering tanks and having them repaired and putting them back into service, which is a vital part of armored warfare that you never hear about. Unless the tank is burned, it can be repaired, parts replaced, armor repaired, welded up, and used all over again, at least in that stage of technology. And his comment was this, that yes, a Tiger was far better than a Sherman, mainly in the form of its gunpowder, not in the form of its armor like you would think, but the answer was in a shell that fired white phosphorus. And this hellish invention is an incendiary round, and it did a couple things. At first, they blinded the Panther, or the which is far more likely, or the Tiger, which was very unlikely. And the reason you hear about so many Tigers in Normandy was the soldiers saw every heavy tank as being a Tiger, their ultimate nightmare. And it turned out that 95% of the time it was a Panther. But they could hit the Panther with a white phosphorus shell, which immediately blinded the crew, one. Two, the thing burned so hot that it would begin to leak through into the turret, which is really bad news. And three, it filled the turret and the fighting compartment full of poisonous fumes. And the answer was, get the hell out of the tank. The German answer to that was to mount a Hertzer or something, or some sort of tank destroyer in a hidden position near it, and then they could recover the tank later, so forth and so on. But nevertheless, the Sherman was never as helpless as people wanted to make out. And the other grim fact is that for every Panther or Tiger or anything else out there, there were a heck of a lot more Shermans. Well, that's only good to a start, but by the Battle of and so the Army's answer is, we're killing tanks with what we got. And we don't need anything else. Well, come the Battle of the Bulge, things got ugly. And it wasn't the bocage of Normandy, which is just a slog. And, you go through one hedgerow and then you find the enemy trap waiting for you. And you go through the next hedgerow and there's the next kill team waiting for your tanks, and that it was in Normandy. It was more open, and American armor didn't fare all that well. And there was a immediate cry, well, you need to get these tanks up here immediately. And depending on who you read, it did or didn't take place. But essentially, at that point, they started shipping Pershings over. And the differences were it had 100 inches of armor, 4 inches of armor, and laid over at a fairly extreme angle. All right, let's go to action here. And the answer was that it did its job. It could fight on equal term with Panthers and Tigers. And you'll always some wags say, what about the King Tiger? Well, I don't think there were ever more than about 250 in the field. And the truth of the matter with a lot of German armor was that unless you won the battle, you ended up losing a lot of tanks because they broke down all the time. Panther was notorious for having a very light rear end, and nobody could ever figure out the reason why. But there was a whole chapter of a history book called "Who Killed Tiger?" and the answer was Tiger killed Tiger. It just couldn't be kept in the field in adequate numbers because it was so unreliable. Okay, so we're going to go on this map. We're going to go forward, get on this road, and try not to get killed. So anyway, the T-26 was an answer. It wasn't the perfect answer. It was maybe not even a good answer, but it was an answer. All right, so we spotted the tank. And sure enough, he can't shoot over berms either. And he wasted 2 shots trying to kill me when he couldn't. And luckily, my compatriots took him out before I could. Oh joy. Alright, we're going to come on around here. Still making our way to the objective. And we have enemy tanks. And there's 2 dead. I think we did our bit there. I hope that wasn't friendly fire. Good. It wasn't. And I'd like to fire at this, but my compatriot has decided to block the road to make sure I couldn't get through. God, that's irritating. We'll stay here for a moment. I guess that was their incoming fire support. And we'll move on here. We had a little success. This guy should run out for a roadblock. Not surprisingly, we won that. So we killed everything we ran across. And there's your M48 patent tank. It remained the patent throughout its entire design history, all the way through the M60A3, I believe was the last. And was a successful tank, and it fought in more tank battles than you might want to know. The M48 and the M60 were both used by Israel in the Middle East wars, or it was fairly successful. All right, so we did the 865 points of damage, spotted 8, killed 4. And as soon as I get to 50%, I get a steel emblem or medallion or something like that. What is that thing? Steel insignia. Don't know what that is, but okay. Well, heck, we're supposed to be finding this stuff out. I don't know what that means, though. Okay, well, we'll find out later. And look at our inventory. And let's go on to a second game. These games tend to be kind of short, so it's not a whole lot to put two of these together. And we'll also be doing a couple of videos, and I'll be putting them out today on the PT-76, just because it's a tier 1 tank, and who really cares, right? We'll get through it and move on. All right, let's go ahead and start the mission here. Anyway, the M26 Pershing was not a flawless tank. It had not enough firepower. They thought the gun can be improved, and it was. They had this enormously long barrel they stuck on the thing. They wanted 88 millimeter performance, which is perfectly possible in a 90 millimeter caliber weapon. And so they redesigned the chamber. First went with bag charges, then they tried something else with a long cartridge, and they finally figured out, you know, if we put a short cartridge into this, it's a heck of a lot easier to mount into the turret, and if you make it fatter, it can have just as much powder in it, and you get just as much propellant force. And so they went with that. So you got an upgraded cannon, and then they rationalized it to the M26, which had a better engine, which proceeded to the M47, which again got a better engine and fire control upgrades and additional planning to the gun better ammo. And they went to a switched from a low flash point hydraulic system to a system that used hydraulic fluid that really didn't burn very well, which was what you want in a tank. American ammunition is nitrocellulose based. It's still to this day nitrocellulose based. It has been so since before World War One. And the reason is, with the right stabilizers, one, degrades extremely slowly, and two, is extremely reluctant to burn compared to other propellants. As such, it becomes a preferable propellant. Well, you go look and you say, well, Jeff, what heck difference does that make? And the answer is kind of simple. When you go to and look at the Battle of Jutland and the loss of the battle cruisers, the cordite propellant, which was the other purpose, could be a very good propellant, but stacked incorrectly, stored incorrectly, or allowed to deteriorate, which it did very rapidly, and without a lot of notice, became very dangerous. And because of incorrect handling procedures and the perceived need to fire the guns as fast as they could, they had, in the British battle cruisers at least, they had cordite charges stacked all from the handling room straight down to the magazine, and one hit and you lost a ship. And part of that was due to bad handling procedures. The other part of it was that the Germans were doing the same thing, had loose charges all over the place, but when their turrets get hit, they didn't blow. They deflagrated, is the term. And the difference to this was that the entire magazine would burn out. Well, the magazine wasn't burning out, but all those charges were burning out. And they didn't explode. And therefore the magazine wasn't involved, therefore the ship survived. Now, it's as good as that sounds, you have to understand that almost to a man, the gun crews were either killed instantly or suffered burns so horrible you don't even want to think about it. And so essentially the turret was hors de combat until after they got back into the shipyard and fixed any damage that took place and replaced the crew. Still not a great outcome. There's been only one magazine detonation that I'm aware of, which is the USS Arizona, and that may have had to do with the fact that somebody decided that leaving the hatch open and having a black powder magazine nearby probably set that off. Other than that, despite the fact that there were direct hits to magazines, USI magazines didn't explode in operation. USS Savannah would be a case in point. So there's a little bit on the propellant situation. Now that is changing in the U.S. military as we speak, and there are other more exotic propellants being used these days. Let's hope they are being just carefully handled from the safety aspects as the U.S. Nitrocellulose explosives are, or propellants are. Okay, so we're in our M48, and we're going to go look around and see what we can do here. You'll see on the radar map the ultimate target. It's going to be right up this road. And I bet we're going to find a few tanks along the way. Hopefully I'll even get to shoot some before my... Getting to actually kill a tank around here when there's somebody in front of you gets to be very difficult. That was one of our targets there. And there was a tank, and I actually got to kill it. And I really don't want to go into that rock bed. And there's an enemy tank. And I can actually... Alright. And he wasted his... And I see a tank coming around here. And I have yet to reload. So we'll try to catch this fella. Which goes to show that if you show the size of your tank, you're going to die pretty quick. You know, for a guy that's complaining he wasn't getting to kill anything, that sure changed in a hurry, didn't it? And I will tell you one thing that's becoming apparent: familiarity with the maps are very important. Don't see anything there that makes me think that I need to go any further. When you see that striped line, that's it. That's the end of the map. And you can't, might as well be a brick wall. Okay, that's the end of the game. I'm sure we won. There's our trucks and the aircraft that fell. Okay. And we destroyed 5 enemy tanks that time, so we did good. Okay, that'll wrap that up. Here's your M48. There are upgrades, of course, that can be made to it, etc., etc. But we're going to progress through that, and if you go to a dealer, you can see the line I'm going down right now. Of course, I'm going to keep this tank because you also have the German line here, the German line here, and I may even end up having to go down this line, which is the Italian line. Okay, and then you have I don't know what a Draco is. And then we have, ooh, towed vehicles, Fox, Bradley Warrior, that's your APC line apparently. Weasel Tow, Swing Fire. These are various ATGM carriers, anti-tank guided weapon carriers. This is a British design that was in operation for a good while. The Warrior is a very famous version, APC with the British and equivalent to our Bradley. People argue all day long which is better. Yeah. I don't know what a crab is. Or a sphinx. But we'll deal with that. That's much further down the line. This is obviously the Italian version. They came out with Centauro, which is an interesting vehicle, 8-wheeled vehicle, and I guess they replaced it with a mobile gun system, which is, we call it the Striker, but it came from a Swiss company called MOWAG, M-O-W-A-G, Piranha, and they comes in a 6 and 8-wheel version. We chose the 8-wheel version. And we have some out there to this day, I believe, unless they've been retired. I don't know about it. But it gives light troops some on-scene firepower, and it's a 105 millimeter cannon. It's no joke. It's a little small to be a tank destroyer, but like everything else, if you get to the sides of the rear of any tank manufactured by anybody, you're going to find that it's going to work pretty darn well. So, and then you have the Leopard 2A5, which, as I understand, is the latest version. So I don't know what this is. It's maybe some sort of upgrade. The Starship was a M48 with a 1.52 6-inch weapon. It could fire both guns and an anti-tank missile called the Shillelagh. So we've got some interesting things to look forward to here. The plan is that we'll go through these lines and bring them up one at a time, and then go on down the next line. If you have some strong feelings on it, let me know. If you want me to see me go down a line and then start on the next, we can do that too. I'm flexible. This channel is really about what the viewer wants, not so much what I want. If you guys start saying, hey, look, I really want you to go down the U.S. line and get down the Abrams SEP 5, A1 and A2, SEP 3, A5, version 5, we'll do that, okay? We're flexible. But let me know what you want. If you keep your mouth shut, then I'm going to do what I want. You know how that one works, right? Okay. Listen, I appreciate you watching. Remember to like the video if you like the video. Your comments are always wanted and very much needed. And please subscribe. We'll talk to you soon. We'll see you tomorrow.